Hey, what's going on, everybody? In this video, we're going to be doing a life science book review of a book entitled Cannibalism, A Perfectly Natural History by Bill Schutt. And he's also written another life science book entitled Dark Banquet, I believe, about animals that feast on other animals or people's blood, which also sounds interesting. But yeah, this book obviously is about cannibalism, both in the animal kingdom as well as human cannibalism. I read this book as a buddy read with Megan's Red Library, so I'm going to leave the link down below for her channel, and you should definitely go check that out. Unfortunately, this book was a little bit of a disappointment for me, just because I guess I was expecting a lot more excitement and a lot more fun from a book entitled Cannibalism. Essentially, the first third of the book is cannibalism in the animal kingdom, and then the latter two-thirds of the book deals with cannibalism a lot in human cultures. And I definitely felt there was a disparity between the two parts. The animal cannibalism sections of the book were a lot more entertaining, I thought, and just a lot more fun and interesting, whereas the human cannibalism, there really wasn't actually all that much cannibalism going on, hardly at all, throughout pretty much all those chapters, and it just kind of dragged on and on. For example, pretty early on, he deals with like a really big chapter. I think it's a big chapter in the book on the Donner Party, which, if you guys don't know, on the Oregon Trail in the 1800s, that was like the famous incident in the Sierra Nevada where that famous caravan of people and goods and stuff who were trying to migrate out west to California, got stuck in a blizzard up in the mountains basically, and cannibalism happened. And he deals with the whole investigation of the researchers going out archaeologically trying to like uncover like what exactly happened and how much cannibalism, if any, went on and all that stuff. And it just sort of dragged on and on and on for whatever reason. I don't know, it just didn't hold my attention all that much. Also, the last three chapters of the book were kind of weird. They basically dealt with Kuru, which is a disease that some Pacific Islanders get, that they while they were cannibalizing each other, even though it was still fairly rare. It's like a disease that they believe originally was basically sorcery and stuff like that. But after all this research, and he tells the story of all these different researchers like living among them and trying to discover stuff and the origins of that disease and all that good stuff like that. He basically compares it how it's very similar, or not the same, to mad cow disease, and originating from England, and that whole like breakout in the 80s and 90s. And those three chapters are all interconnected, and those seem to drag on and on and on. But essentially, there really isn't a whole lot of cannibalism going on in the latter two-thirds of the book with the human cannibalism. There is a little bit, but that's definitely on the sideline compared to just the more philosophical points that he's trying to make. There were some good highlights in the book that I thought were kind of funny. There was a weird chapter on the whole concept of eating placentas after babies are born and stuff. And it was, the way the chapter's written is kind of weird, because he goes to like someone's house that cooks and sells placentas to like people who want to do that for a living, basically. So it was like a really weird structured chapter, but it was interesting. But it is kind of neat to learn that that's basically just sort of a new age myth type thing. Historically, people, like, pretty much no people group like on the planet has like historically actually ate placentas and stuff. But that's basically like there's just like a bunch of rumors and like urban myths that could float around on the internet, and how that has sort of spread, and people think that is like a legitimate thing going on, but it really historically hasn't been till just recent times. So yeah, that was definitely interesting, and I definitely thought the animal chapters of the book were really, really well written, and I learned a ton from those, which I guess for me is a good thing, because that's what I bought the book for in the first place, just because I enjoy the life sciences. And I definitely learned a lot how basically cannibalism in the animal kingdom is actually very rarely related to basically just like starvation or stress related factors. Me just assuming, I guess, before reading this book, I just assumed that was basically the main factor why certain species would cannibalize each other. But there's actually like just tons of reasons, and there's even cases where we don't really know why they do. There's not really any apparent reason. But It's just interesting to learn how there's like dimorphism in some species where some will just basically completely change, like in the opening chapter with frogs, how some tadpoles will basically just develop into cannibalizing each other, and basically change their whole like muscular and skeletal structure just to accommodate that, and then others will not. But yeah, it was interesting to learn. Just like I said, there's lots of different reasons for cannibalizing in the animal kingdom, but basically starvation is almost like one of the most negligible factors for that. But yeah, overall, I thought the first third of the book was really interesting, and I'm still glad I read it just for the animal cannibalism portions of the book. I thought the human cannibalism parts could have been done a little bit better. There were a couple good chapters, like he has a pair of chapters called "Eating People is Bad" and "Eating People is Good." I thought those ones were really well written, but like I said, there was a lot of just sort of superfluous stuff where not really a whole lot of cannibalizing is actually going on. It's more just sort of a uh, just like an in-depth case studies, basically, which just I guess isn't something I was interested in reading. But yeah, overall, it's still a pretty good book. I'm going to give Cannibalism, A Perfectly Natural History by Bill Schutt, 3.5 stars. I still like the book enough to check out his other life science work, Dark Banquet, a book about, like I said, animals eating or drinking other animals' blood. But yeah, 3.5 stars to Cannibalism, and always remember, read victoriously.